Hello and welcome to another review of Drones Visual. First, I would like to wish you all Happy New Year. I would also like to announce that I have a few more really interesting quads over here that I'll be reviewing soon. So this year is coming loaded with nice surprises, so stay tuned. Today, I bring you once again another quad from Eachine. I have mentioned in previous videos that Eachine has been so active releasing new quads, especially FPV racers, that I basically don't have time to keep up. Today I bring you a review of a little FPV racer that I have the feeling that many of you are going to like. I'm talking about the Eachine Falcon 120 that was announced not long time ago by Eachine. I decided to review this little FPV racer because I saw that there wasn't much information about it online and it certainly looks interesting. Today my intention is to cover what comes included with this quad, do a quick overview of the main components, and do a really quick flight test using both 3S and 4S batteries. So okay, let's then get started by taking a look at what we get with the little Eachine Falcon 120. The first thing we'll find inside the box is this tiny little Mushroom FPV antenna that comes with an RP SMA male connector. Then we also get 3 inches 4-blade props compatible with 1306 motors. They come in two colors, red and black. Now these props, they're not very thick, but on the other hand they are light, and a few grams certainly make the difference for a little FPV racer like the Eachine Falcon 120. The stock battery in this tiny little FPV racer is a 3S battery. And about the capacity, well, I'm not quite sure about the capacity at this point because as you can see there's no labeling on the battery. I'll update about that later. Now let me show you the size of the stock battery. As you can see here, the length is approximately 66.5 millimeters. Then if we move here to the side, then we can see that it's 21.5, and then here we can see that it is 24.65. Okay, now that we know the dimensions of the battery, let's take a look at the weight. And as you can see, we get here 66.4 grams. The transmitter that comes included with the Falcon 120 is the old famous Eachine i6, which is actually a rebranded FlySky transmitter, and many of you are already familiar with this transmitter, so you should have no problem dealing with it. Of course, we also get a balance charger to charge our tiny LiPo battery, and you can charge both 2S and 3S batteries with this balance charger. And finally, here we have the Eachine Falcon 120. This is an RTF or ready to fly quad, and it packs an F3 racing flight controller, but there will be also versions with a CC3D and an A32. This little fellow comes equipped with 1306 3500 kV Raystar motors equipped with red and black bolts or nuts, as you can see. And if we take a look at the actual carbon fiber frame or plate, you can see that they have a sort of a spongy layer attached to it to offer some more protection to the frame, I guess. Although you will need to scrap it off if you at some point need to replace a motor. If we take a closer look at the plate or frame, we can see that its thickness is around 2.13 millimeters. If we measure also the quad from arm to arm, it gives us around 112 millimeters, as you can see here. And then if we measure it diagonally, we get around 142, I would say. The Eachine Falcon 120 comes equipped with a 700 TVL FPV camera with a CMOS sensor, and it weighs approximately 12 grams, the camera. The negative aspect of the camera is that it completely lacks any protection, so you will need to come up with some solution to protect the camera before flying. The angle of the camera can be easily changed by loosening the screw on the ring holding the camera in place. And sort of the FPV antenna will sort of limit a little bit the angle that you select. You'll see that later. Here on the back you can see the connector with the wires going to the FPV transmitter, red for power, black for ground, yellow for video, and I guess the green one might be audio, not quite sure. Then we have here the tiny little FlySky FS-A8S receiver. I'm not sure what it's missing, why it's missing the antenna though. Luckily I have an antenna like that over here, so it will certainly come handy. Then as you can see here, you can access the FPV transmitter, the FT200 VDX 200 milliwatt 40 channel video transmitter. You can access it here from above. And then here on the rear, let me show you here, this is the RP-SMA female connector for the mushroom antenna that I showed you before. Now let's take a real quick look at the inner components before taking it for a test flight. Let's start by removing here the upper plate. Now let me tell you that removing the upper plate is a little bit tricky because the FPV camera is covering one of the screws. So you will need to remove the camera or sort of like move it to the side before actually accessing the screw. But it's a little bit uncomfortable because there are some components there making difficult to remove the little screw holding the camera. So keep that in mind. As soon as we remove the upper plate, we will see the FPV transmitter, which is, I think, rather large for this quad, although I think it should weigh only 6 grams. On the other end, we have here the wires that go to the FPV camera, and next to it we have the power and ground wires coming from the battery. And then on the other side we have, of course, the RP-SMA female connector for the FPV antenna that I showed you a moment ago. As soon as we remove the FPV transmitter, we expose the flight controller. As I mentioned before, this quad comes with an F3 Racing flight controller, which is really awesome. But there will be 2 other versions available. One comes with an H32 flight controller and the other one with a CC3D. The downside of those 2 versions is that they won't come with a buzzer. And I think that you really need a buzzer for such a tiny little quad, as it can be so easy to lose. Now if we take a look here at the side, we can see where the 4-in-1 ESC board connects to the flight controller. And then here you can see the power and ground wires that are connected here, coming from the battery and connected into the VBAT port for battery voltage monitoring. Then on the left side of the USB here, let me show you, we have the SWD tiny debugging port. And then on the right side you have another UART port. Then of course the tiny little USB connector, which is actually not in the best place, but is still accessible there. And then on the side here we can see the IO2 input and output, nothing connected there now. And then if we take a look under the flight controller, you basically will see the wires going all the way to the buzzer located on the rear section and in between the LED lights. And then here on the other side we also have the wires going all the way from this port here, from the UART port to the receiver. Then basically under the flight controller we'll immediately find the 4-in-1 20 amps BL Heli S ESC board with digital shot support, and this board weighs around 19 grams and it can take up to 4 cell batteries. But remember that the included battery is a 3S battery. If we continue here, we can see then the wires for the LEDs that connect to the IO1 port on the flight controller. And then, just as I showed you before, you can also see here the power and ground wires for the battery voltage monitoring that also connect into the flight controllers. You can see them right here, and they also connect to the flight controller. Then on the other side we can see basically the wires coming from the ESCs or the ESC board, and they connect to the flight controller as well. As you can see, the FPV transmitter wires, they are directly soldered here, and they go all the way to supply the FPV transmitter. Now let's see what the weight of the quad is with everything but the props and the battery. And as you can see, it weighs around 140.5 grams. Before we go out, let's first examine the LED strip. There are 6 LED lights in total, 3 at each side of the buzzer, and then you can of course select the colors you like. If we, for example, move the aileron stick to the right, the lights on the right side will start blinking, and of course the same will happen if you move it to the left. Moving the elevator stick backwards will turn the LED lights, they will turn red if you move that stick backwards. You can always activate the buzzer using the SWD switch in the transmitter, so in case you lose the quad or something like that. And now let me show you real quick here the LED lights and the buzzer. They are kind of well protected, although the buzzer is certainly exposed there. Now I would like to warn you regarding the Mushroom FPV antenna. When you are screwing it or unscrewing the antenna, make sure to hold the transmitter, otherwise you risk breaking the soldering joints keeping the FPV the RP-SMA connector in place. It actually happened to me and I didn't realize. Of course it affected the quality of the FPV feed, so yeah, and also try to protect that camera while flying because it's too exposed there. It definitely needs some protection. I came up with my own DIY solution for the camera, which definitely is not perfect, but it did the job of protecting the camera. So I suggest that you think about something to kind of keep that FPV camera protected there at all times. So now here we are outside and you can see the sort of solution I came up with. It doesn't look very pretty, but it definitely does the job. Let's now go ahead and take the Falcon 124 flight. Now, because the battery is under the quad, be careful when you are taking off or landing, as there is some risk that the props will hit the ground. So try taking off as quickly as you can instead of just spinning the props and then taking off. And when landing, kill the motor as soon as you start touching the ground. This will protect your props from any damage. So keep this in mind when flying, because the battery is now not on top, it's under, so you don't have the same balance. Okay, I'm flying right now with the stock settings, no change or anything. So let's take a look at now the yaw rate. As you can see out of the box, the yaw rate is really fast, actually, really nice, but certainly not maybe good for beginners. For beginners, I will certainly slow it down a little bit. Now remember that I'm using the stock 3S LiPo battery. So let's try some full throttle forward actually to see how it works. Wow, it's certainly fast. It's not mind-blowing, but certainly fast. I'm sure this quad will be a killer with a 4S battery. Really decent acceleration with a 3S battery, but as I said, this quad's pinnacle will be reached with a 4S battery. And actually I have one over here, so I'll try it later. Let me tell you that out of the box you will experience a lot of oscillations when you start to lower the throttles, but I assume that many of you will fine-tune this quad once you get it. Now what I want to do is basically to start flying around a little bit here. There are many people around, but I guess I can do a really quick test here. And wow, it's definitely certainly agile and a fast flyer, it's performing great so far with this 3S battery. Nice speed. I'm certainly liking it. Let me wait a little bit here for these people to go somewhere, because it's not safe to fly with so many people around here. I definitely discourage you from doing that. Okay, less people now, so let's give it a try again. Wow, this little devil can certainly drain all the juice from this 3S battery. I'm wondering now about the discharge rate of this LiPo battery. Listen to how the motors sound. They howl like the wind during a storm. Such an angry little quad. There is a lot of Falcon in it, and I have the feeling that this little fellow will make the Falcon 250 seem slow. At this point, I didn't realize that I had accidentally broken the RP-SMA connector in the video transmitter when I was screwing the antenna, and I assume that this is the reason for all this flickering in the video, as I'm flying at very close range here. But I'm loving the speed and the agility right out of the box. Wow, I guess this quad, if it gets fine-tuned, it's gonna be superb. I thought initially that it would feel a little bit heavy, I mean, I thought it was initially when I grabbed it in my hand, I thought it was kind of heavy, and I would struggle with the 3S battery. But hell no, I mean, it's doing great. I mean, those 20 amp ESCs are like a charm, and the motors are really nice. So I'm liking it so far. Great power, great speed with a 3S battery. Okay, now let's give it a try with a 4S battery. I have here a 600 milliamps 4S Dynogy battery with a discharge rate of 65C. So let's give it a go. Okay, here we go. Damn! I mean, this thing is hard to control at high throttle with a 4S battery. Too much power, slow down. Let me start a little bit slower and then get a feel for it and slowly increase the speed, otherwise I might lose it. Well, you definitely need to give it a go with this battery, especially if you're an adrenaline speed junkie, but so no for beginners. I mean, I think flying this crazy demon with a 4S battery, you'll feel that many other racers sort of fly in slow motion. I mean, those race start motors are just angry and they keep screaming more and more. Well, what can I say? I mean, my hands are kind of shaky now, but I feel this has been a great maiden flight. I love as technology has advanced with these little racers, you know, so agile and so fast. I mean, if I compare it to when I tried the Falcon 250, it's been a big change, I think. So wow, I mean, really loving it. For those of you actually that enjoy flips and rolls, guess what? Let me tell you that you can do them with the stock settings right out of the box. Just make sure you're not in stabilized mode, use angle mode or rate or something like that, and you'll be able to flip it. The flips obviously are not super smooth or elegant or anything like that, but I mean, you can still go for it. Just watch out, because if you keep the elevator up too long, this thing will do like 100 flips before you even blink. I mean, I really had fun actually doing this review, and it was really exciting to fly this little fellow. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely sort of recommending it. At least it's a really fun flyer. Obviously it has some issues, but it's definitely a really fun flyer. So now let's go to the conclusions. First, let me cover what I liked. I liked the motors. Again, great, nice little motors from Raystar, and they just love screaming like it's their last day on Earth. The second, the ESCs, BL Heli S with digital shot support, which allow higher resolution and better, less noise. And also the ESCs, they should also be able to turn off an individual motor in case an obstacle or something is preventing the motor from spinning. I like that the version that I tested comes with an F3 Racing flight controller and a buzzer. I love the way this quad flies. It definitely develops really nice speeds with the stock battery, and it goes crazy with a 4S battery. What I didn't like was the FPV camera. It was too exposed, so it requires some protection before flying. Also, the lens was too loose, so it would just go out of focus when flying because of the vibrations. So you need to use some sort of a Loctite or maybe a tape or something to keep it from rotating. I also felt that the FPV transmitter was a little bit maybe too large. Although, you know, I'm not sure whether there is smaller 200 milliwatt transmitter with a decent range out there in the market that could substitute this one. Another thing I didn't like was the fact that it was hard to remove the upper plate because of the camera was obstructing one of the screws there, and it can be hard to remove the camera as well. And that the FPV transmitter, well, it can actually break actually when you screw in the antenna, so you need to sort of hold it, and that's something I actually didn't like much. And finally, the USB plug, well, it's not so easy to access because of the LED lights on the rear section. You can still access it, but it was kind of hard to get the USB cable to connect. Okay, if you find this review interesting or useful, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or would like to correct anything stupid that I may have said, go ahead. Don't hesitate on dropping some comments, and I will certainly get back to you. Then, of course, for those of you that like quadcopters, drones, and I would like to get the latest news directly from China, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all in my next video.